Hey everyone, Sean McElroy here. We're back with Autoline exclusives. Joining me today is Todd Hook. He's the senior program manager for the Toyota Tundra. And Todd, I got to thank you for joining me today.
You're certainly welcome, Sean, and it's glad to take part in this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And right before we hopped on here, I asked you a question about what was your involvement with the Tundra, and you said you've had some experience with the platform before. And one of the things I find very interesting with this truck, at least to me, is it seems like there's more resources that were plugged into this. I know there's multiple vehicles that share the same platform as the Tundra now. It just seems like a lot more may have been put into it. Do you see it that way, or is there maybe I'm missing something there?
Yeah, as far as a lot more, we do have our four brother development. Four brothers being the full size pickup, the full size SUV, and then our compacts. Yeah, in from a more involvement, I think from a North America standpoint, we did have more involvement compared to the previous gen. So yeah, there was a lot more, I would say, input from North America. We had a lot more members that actually resided in Japan for 1 to 2 years to have our input into that platform. So it's much more, I would say, much more North American involvement than the previous generation.
Yeah, one of the things that stuck out to me too was even in going into like the real basic stuff, I felt like there was a lot of thought that was put into it, like the frame. I think someone was talking once recently that I heard, and they're talking about the crash areas of the frame and how now that you're using like varying thicknesses of the steel of the frame to absorb crash or provide safety for the occupants, whereas
Mm.
before maybe it would have been multiple layers of steel that were used. So it's stuff like that that I find really interesting.
Yeah, with our Dejima weld process, it's a lot more optimizing. We can optimize more in the key areas that need it by not overlaying steel, but using our laser blank welding to bring different thicknesses and different strengths of material together where we need it. So when you have the overall package completed and you have those areas optimized where you need it, it's much more efficient. Efficient from a safety standpoint, efficient from a mass standpoint, and ultimately from a cost standpoint.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like more resources going towards the vehicle, stuff like the frame and
Mm.
things like that. Is there anything else that kind of fit in along those lines that you feel like were really well developed on this truck?
Yeah, the frame, and then I would say components within the frame. Of course, we have our one motor hybrid system, which had much development with our motor generator from North America going into that platform. So anywhere from the inline system and the way it was all developed probably starting like 5 or 6 years ago from key members from North America that went to Japan for that development. I wouldn't say stayed in Japan, but there was a lot of travel back and forth and a lot of input and a lot of development from this North America powertrain side. So yeah, that one motor hybrid system was a key North America development, I would say.
Yeah, no, very important to have something like that in your lineup for sure. Another thing that was really well developed on this truck is aerodynamics. Seems to have played a big role in the development. You've got active aero, I believe, on the radiator, and even like a little chin strap on the front of the vehicle. And even during one of the presentations, we're talking about little vortices that were put on like the rear tail lights to help with aero, and talking about how it could reduce some sway in the bed of the truck. So just some
Right.
really cool stuff there too.
Yeah. Yes, the Arrow actually started way back, probably in 2016, back in TMC. We had one of our lead engineers go to Japan for 2 years. He got involved deeply with the aerodynamics from a North America customer truck perspective. Wanted to have that input. So we have over in Japan, we have kind of I'd call a state of the art aero and acoustic wind tunnel that we use. And then there was a lot of that input. Like during the stage, we focused more on the cooling, the underbody, the approach, truck factors that go into aerodynamics, we were able to try and incorporate into the studies from an early standpoint. And then that was actually transferred over in 2018, where we led it from here. And then that got more involved with the actual vehicle dynamics as far as the aero, meaning when we got involved with styling back in 2018, when we had a styling model, this lead engineer led the development of a chassis, like taking an existing chassis from previous gen, created a fiberglass model. So you have this fiberglass model of the styling that was created at that time. And then from that styling, he developed the aero package. So for example, we had the front end of the fiberglass model on top of this chassis. He'd use that for the wind tunnel. And then he would, you had attached plastic and clay parts, mirrors and other plastic parts that we need to add on to that. Then he used that model to manipulate in order to try and achieve our target. So for example, with styling, you have a lot of different iterations of models, different stages as you progress. So he would get his input, and I was actually kind of, I'd say, key in the program management between that engineer, the stylist, and the design engineers, because it has to be manufactured also, like the stampings and the plastic parts. So that kind of evolved, and we used CFD, the fluid dynamics, along the way to develop our countermeasures. And so, for example, we had this first iteration, we'd test it, and then we used the CFD. We'd have another iteration, and we'd use clay to modify, and we have our negotiations with the stylist and the engineers, and then we'd move on to the next stage. And several stages, several negotiations and iterations. But finally, through all that, we were all happy. The stylist got what they wanted eventually, and we were able to manufacture it, and it met our 16% CD target, the coefficient of drag, which was our target of 16% reduction. So it was quite an undertaking, I would say, but ultimately it was well worth the effort, I would say.
Yeah, that's no joke when you say it's quite an undertaking. Just knowing a little bit of that stuff myself, hearing designers talk about having to sit on a bucket inside the wind tunnel and scrape a little bit of clay off, and you talk about having the fiberglass mold there where you could kind of hang stuff onto
Mhm.
it. So yeah,
Well, yeah,
it's a lot of little iteration that
it is.
but it can
It
make a
is.
big difference in the end.
Well, let me give you an example, Sean. So when we took over the development here in 2018 in North America, Toyota North America doesn't have a wind tunnel, but we lease wind tunnels, and there's the wind tunnel in Ottawa, Canada, that we utilize, which was basically an open wind tunnel. So it was big enough where we could incorporate a trailer, like a 20-foot trailer, which was part of our testing.
Yeah, you just nailed one of
Yeah,
my other questions because I find that so interesting about you put a whole trailer on a truck inside the wind tunnel, which
that's
is
right.
I had never heard of that before.
That's correct. And that was part of the development. And with our active arrow, we were able to morph the shape that we needed in order to meet the targets. And this was, like I mentioned, it was outside. So the engineer actually, I didn't take part in it, but the engineer actually told me, yeah, we had times when it was minus 30 wind chill, and they're out there doing the testing because it was an outside wind tunnel, but it was enough and capable to accommodate what we needed to get our towing arrow down. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. And I'd say one of the other cool things about your active arrow, at least for someone that lives in Michigan in a wintertime, that the active arrow won't activate over a certain temperature. So you don't have to worry about blowing out a motor or snapping off a piece of the active arrow. So,
Correct.
little clever things like that that I think maybe the customer may never know about, but would definitely be beneficial for them.
Right. Yeah, we have rigorous testing, and part of that is cold weather. Like you said, for freezing or snow buildup in extreme conditions. We have certain criteria that you're right. It won't operate.
Yeah, and talking about towing too, it seems like a lot of effort was put into that part of the new Tundra. I think you guys have now two tow haul modes for the truck, and those will do different things. I think one's for a lighter trailer and a heavier trailer. Do I have that
Yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah, the tow haul is basically from 0 to 5,000 pounds, and then from 5,000 plus, it's the tow haul plus. And it's developed and mapped to that type of weight um, for the haul mode.
Yeah, and then the other interesting part about towing that I found too is that the ADAS features, the sensitivity of them will actually change depending on whether or not you have a trailer on the back of the truck, which again, very interesting, something I hadn't heard of before anybody doing.
Yes, correct. So we have our ADAS system, our advanced driving assistance systems, and within that, you have the PCS system, pre-crash safety, and that's part of our Toyota Safety Sense. So when you talk about, like you mentioned, it has all those safety features when you're towing. You're correct, and that's basically incorporated into every vehicle, and it's at no cost, and is included with TSS. But it involves our PCS system, which is our pre-crash system, and our ACC, which is our adaptive cruise control, or our radar. So within that system, it understands and knows when there's a trailer hooked up, and then it adapts. Like, for example, adaptive cruise control, it'll adapt to a different distance when you have towing hooked up. And then from pre-crash, it'll understand there's a weight involved in the trailer, so it incorporates that weight with the speed, and then it'll stop at the proper distance. So it's very those type of simple terms, but that's what the system is designed for.
No, it's very interesting. Just the level of thought that went into this generation of Tundra just seems above and beyond to me. And is there anything else that I'm missing here, or maybe some piece of tech or something that you think is really interesting?
Yeah, related to towing, yeah, the good thing is you can configure a bunch of trailers, a bunch of different types. You can have a bunch of different numbers of trailers. So that's always
So the
fun and
truck, so
interesting.
the truck actually knows which trailer you're hooking up. Is that right? It would know
Well,
from
once you
one to
hook up,
another.
then you have to pick from your menu. So you'll have
Yeah.
a menu. But there's other features like our straight path assist, like when you're towing and you're backing up, like say you're in a campground and you have a tight squeeze, you line your trailer up and it's configured, and then you also hit our straight path assist on the monitor, center monitor, and then it'll do all the work for you, basically go straight back for you. Same thing with our trailer guide system. It's not automatic, but it shows you on the monitor, okay, I'm turning the steering wheel left, which way is the trailer going? So you can use both types of features, but both of those features are really handy. I have a bass boat here in Michigan, and I've used that several times, and it's just so nice that you don't have to worry about going straight back at the boat ramp, for example, or in a mobile home park or trailer park.
Yeah, I've gotten to experience those things a little bit myself, and, yeah, anytime that you can have an aid when backing up, unless you're the absolute master of doing it yourself, and I know some people do pride themselves on that, but yes, it's a great aid to have, so definitely very
Correct.
interesting, but, like I said, I've just been really impressed with the amount of thought and effort that went into this generation Tundra. And, Todd, I want to thank you for joining me today to talk, just a little bit about it. There's still a lot more, and I would encourage people that are interested to go and check out more on the truck because there's some really interesting things with it. But again, Todd, I want to thank you for joining me today and helping fill us in a little bit on what this new Tundra is all about.
Absolutely. You're very welcome, Sean.
Yeah,
Thank you so
have a good
much.
one. See ya.
See ya. Bye.